got here and I'm woefully under-prepared. Forgot to bring the clamp to mount the camera to my little gimbal thing, so we have it just kind of rigged up. I'm in a storage unit. Got started before I started filming, but I went through and gapped all of the new spark plugs here. These are NGK iridiums. I've already pulled 2 of the spark plugs out. The old aren't like terrible. What are we trying to fix? I should have explained that. Basically, the past 2 times I've taken it out, when you get under load, it really starts breaking up, misfiring, loss of power. It's not logging any codes. It is still running a stock Subaru ECU, so I would think it would pick up misfire codes. Maybe they're not significant enough. Kind of the 2 common things after talking with some Subaru people, some have mentioned ignition coils could be going bad. Others have mentioned just spark plugs. And so I'm starting with just spark plugs because they're a lot cheaper. All of this stuff is original to the donor car. I think this engine had 120,000 miles on it, something like that. And I don't know if these spark plugs had ever been replaced or not. So I've got the spark plugs in on one side already, and gonna put these ignition coils back in, then we'll hop to the other side. Take her back and get some ignition coils ordered. I do have one other option. I use EJ20 ignition coils on the Volvo. They are just a cheap Amazon aftermarket one. There's a bolt that's like pressed in normally on the Subaru, and I pressed it out so I can use a different bolt on these. So I wouldn't be able to bolt these in place. And I'm trying to decide, do I just do a quick swap and a drive and see, does that fix it? So I grabbed one here, and they just, without that bolt, they don't stay in very well. I think driving that would fall out very quickly. So, yeah. Ended up bringing the Beetle home. Got my little portable AC running just because it's hot out. And I pull in, and the first thing I find, this hose has left the chat. It's cracked, it's barely hanging on there. I think that's got a lot to do with it. It's after the MAP sensor, so it's a big old leak. Let's see if I can get that replaced real quick. All right, so I just cut off the split end, shoved it on there a little further. I'm gonna go take it for a drive and see if that's all that it was. We just cannibalized the ignition coils off of the Volvo and put them on the Beetle here. So these are just some no-name Amazon brand ones. The hose that was cracked and like disconnected didn't seem to make much of a difference. Still definitely a problem. So we'll go take it out again. This should at least help us determine if it is an ignition coil problem. Sorry, my hand's so shaky. This should at least help us determine, is it ignition coils or not? If this goes away, then I can do process of elimination and like swap maybe one bank back to the original one, see if it comes back, that sort of thing. Hopefully this helps us narrow things down. All right, we got this ignition coil swapped and it's doing the same thing. I'll show you again what it's doing. Kind of a bummer, so that means there's more hunting to be done. It's actually arguably worse with these. Unless something's just not plugged in right. These are cheap Amazon ones. It might just be, on the Volvo they're fine with no forced induction, but on this, yeah, I'm having a hard time even just getting back home. All right, it is another day. We have still not solved what is wrong with the Beetle here. Did miss a pretty exciting evening between last time and this time. A guy Donovan from the local Subaru club brought over a known good set of used ignition coils, but they only have like 100 miles on them. We swapped them on, went for a drive, ran great. But then during the drive, started having some problems, like he'd hit 15 PSI and it'd break up. So we came back and we're like, well, maybe one of his is bad because the car had been sitting like outside over the winter. So we started doing this juggling, putting a couple of my old ones on with his, seeing if we could find like a good set. And every drive, it got worse and worse. We were even doing pit crew style stops where I'd pull out in front of the garage, shut it off, sit in the car, and he would just swap one out real quick and we'd go, because it's super easy to do with the engine all exposed. Finally hit a point where I said, let's put the 4 back in that we knew were good, and went back out, and it was the worst it had been. I couldn't even hit 1 PSI of boost. Every run was worse and worse. So the current theory is it's probably not ignition coils. It's probably, hopefully just some sensor that as it gets hot and starts heat soaking, it's sending a bad reading. The other theory is maybe it's a fuel delivery problem, that when I first start the car, fuel's flowing freely, then either as the fuel pump gets hot, it stops flowing enough, or the fuel filter is maybe clogging. So when it's a cold start, whatever's clogging the filter maybe has settled out, and then as we drive, it kind of stirs it back up and progressively clogs it. We're gonna take it for a drive. We'll get a few things pulled up on the access port to monitor while driving, and then we're gonna do a few logs. It has the known good set of ignition coils, so it'll be interesting to see on a cold start, does it run well? We'll do a log if it does, and then I'll just drive it and let it get hot again. And if it starts acting up, we'll do another log with it acting up and see if it gets worse and worse. What I would like to do, but I'm not gonna do right now, is hook up a fuel pressure gauge, and that would tell me, like, is fuel filter clogging, or is the fuel pump not running well enough? But I just don't have a whole lot of time right now. But this will give me some stuff to look at kind of over the weekend while I'm away. If that doesn't lead me to anything else, then we'll do the fuel pressure thing. So things are still like relatively cold right now, but we're gonna go and do one pull real quick. Better than last time we drove it. Worse than when we first put the 4 ignition coils on. But definitely better than the last drive with these ignition coils. So when we first put these ignition coils on, we kind of hopped in and went right away. I did sit in the garage right now with the engine running. It's like pulled everything up on the access port, so that could have been part of it. Could have already started heat soaking a little bit, but we're going to drive it just a little bit more, see if it gets worse. All right, we are back. Couple things that we learned. I don't think it solves things. I feel a little bit more confident that like crank cam angle sensors seem okay. As long as I don't get into the throttle too much and put too much load on it or too much boost, I can keep pushing the RPM basically all the way to red line. If it was cam or crank, I would think like as the RPMs increase, it'd start getting more inaccurate readings. But again, as long as like the load wasn't too much, boost wasn't too much, it did okay. It seemed very, very much specific to how much boost pressure there is. Now, that could still mean a fuel problem. It's a little hard for me to tell just watching the gauges. If it was like running out of fuel, there's a fuel delivery problem. Can't rule that out yet. So the original coils, the loaner coils, the Volvo coils, they're all doing the same thing. So I don't think it's coils. It does have new spark plugs in it. So sensor or fuel problem. Another day, part, I don't know, 43, whatever, of this saga of trying to figure out what's going on with the Beetle to figure out if we're having a fuel pump issue. We are going to swap around some of these gauges. So currently we've got tachometer over here. That was the first gauge that I put after the speedometer. I then got these autometer sport comp gauges because I thought they looked really similar to the speedometer. They both have this satin silver ring. They're a black face. They don't light up through the numbers. They light up around the edges, as you know, matches the speedometer there. These are doing the same thing. It's light out, so it's hard to see. But I'm kind of at a point where one day, hopefully soon, I'm going to tear this whole car apart and redo it. Also, since the Subaru swap, not all these gauges are hooked up. I do want to hook up the wideband gauge someday. I just don't have a bung in the exhaust for it. I don't have a second bung for a second wideband, so that's not hooked up. And then I was monitoring cylinder head temp with the air-cooled engine because that's kind of an important temperature to measure. I also used to have a oil temp and oil pressure gauges. I don't remember exactly for sure. I had 2 other gauges there, but cylinder head temp I don't use anymore. And so I'm gonna swap in this Pro Comp 2 gauge. Now, the difference being, you can see the needle's a little bit different. This needle lights up and these numbers will light up through the face of the gauge instead of just around the edge. Otherwise, they look very similar, and I like just the clean, simple look of these. So I'm gonna swap this one out. Someday in the future, I'm gonna go through and get all new gauges so they all match once again, and do something with this gauge to make it a little bit more modern. And again, the whole interior, I eventually want to redo. But this will be the first step. We're gonna pull out cylinder head temp, we're gonna put in a fuel pressure gauge, and then we gotta figure out where we're gonna tap into the fuel line to get fuel pressure. But I'm gonna start just with sort of the easy part. The wiring is a huge mess. So I'm not gonna show you around in here too much. Again, someday, hopefully in the next couple years, this whole car will get a revamp. We'll make a whole nice new wiring harness for it. We're just gonna jump ahead to pulling the gauge out from the inside. Slide that on out. Slide the new one on in. We've got the gauge wired up. We don't have the sensor plugged in yet, but when we turn lights on, we see it's lit up. You can see how dim these other ones are, and this bulb's not even working. I've got to pop it back out and figure out what's going on there. But we got that. Then when we turn ignition on, we'll see it does a sweep here, and it's not hooked up to anything, so it's reading maxed out. We turn it off and back on, it returns to 0. So now let's work on getting the sensor plumbed in. And what I'm trying to decide is if I put it up front or in the back. The harness isn't long enough to reach the back, so I'll have to extend it, but I also don't know that I have a great place to put it up front because the pump is mounted to what would normally be the firewall. And then there's just a few inches of hose, maybe 3 or 4 inches of hose, and then it goes into a hard line that runs down the center tunnel. Putting it in the back would put it closer to the fuel rails, so it'd be more accurate reading for the injectors themselves. But it just means I have to extend the harness. There's also not really a super great place to put it back there. It's gonna kind of dangle out there for the time being. But I think it'll be fine for sort of the troubleshooting that we're trying to do. So I could put it basically anywhere in here. I do have this part of the sensor, so I've got to put a T in here, thread the sensor in, and then wherever this is going to end up. You know, if I put it up here, I suppose I could kind of zip tie it to help minimize some vibrations. If I put it down here, it gets pretty close to some things. So I can always move this later, and I've got plenty of hose to do so. So I think for the time being, it's probably gonna end up just kind of chilling right there. Wire pigtail ran to the back, but then it's split in here. Got the front half here. We've got the back half just inside the door. So I've got to add 3 or 4 feet to it. I don't have the exact colors of wires. It's gray, purple, and black. I have gray, it does have a black stripe, we'll ignore that. I have black, and then I have a blue with red, which makes purple, so we'll use that, it'll be fine. Okay, so we can see the lights work. I have the fuel switch on, which then requires the ignition to come on. So once I flip the ignition on, we hear the fuel pump prime and we see the gauge. It always goes back to 0. So I'm gonna give it a start and just see what happens here. As we get into boost, fuel pressure drops. 2 days later after seeing that fuel pressure is dropping while we're under boost. So I got a new fuel filter. This is a lot cheaper than the pump. Though the pump isn't really that bad, it's like 80 bucks. So my hope is to slap this in here, take it for a drive this weekend. Fortunately, it's raining outside right now, so not a great time. But hopefully we'll see a little bit of break in the weather and we'll be able to take this out. But for now, we're gonna get the new filter in. This filter is rated to 60 PSI. I just kind of did a parts catalog search for one that had the same inlet and outlet size as what I already have. The one I have on there now is a Earl's fuel filter. It's rated to 100 PSI, but this is all mounted before the fuel pump in my setup. So it's never gonna see, you know, a tremendous amount of pressure. The thing I'm not really looking forward to is the filter's mounted up inside here, and there's just like a short bit of line from the fuel tank, and then the filter's underneath. So I'm gonna have to try and pinch off that fuel line, otherwise the fuel tank is just gonna try and drain on me, which is not fun. But we'll get that off, we'll swap this in. It's a little bit of a tight space, debating if I try and take the wheel off or not. I just kind of don't want to, but we'll see how this goes. All right, so if we can get this, let's see, get this to focus. All right, back in there. So there's our pump, there's the filter, there's the fitting coming out of the fuel tank. So it's basically just a big T fitting. The return comes in, actually the side that we're looking at, and then fuel goes out on the other side and up into the filter here, and then loops back into the pump, and then down into the frame out to the back. So it's gonna be a little hard to get video of this, but I'm just gonna snip these cable ties, loosen these bolts, clamp off the fuel line, take the clamps off, take that filter out and put the new one in. So here is the old fuel filter, and this is what came out of it. I just knocked the inlet side kind of against this paper towel. And yeah, that is some stuff that would clog things. It's super gritty looking. Okay, yet another day. Fuel filter swapped out. We've got a gap in rain, maybe of like 20, 30 minutes before it starts up again. Had to kind of wait for it to dry out just a little bit, but now trying to make sure we get out before it starts up again. So let's fire it up and take it out and see if it's fixed or if it's the fuel pump. fixed. We just got back. We drove, I don't know, probably a good 20 minutes or so. Made sure it got hot, made sure, you know, enough fuel was circulating, and it was perfect. It would hit 60 PSI fuel pressure when under boost. It makes like 17.5 PSI boost, so that gets added on top of the base fuel pressure, 43.5. So that's, you know, all expected. It pulls hard, it runs great, it sounds good. I think that's it. Pretty exciting weekend. A couple shows, specifically the Omaha Volkswagen Club Show and Shine, that we're hoping to take it to. There's long-term dreams with this car. It's very like cobbled together, just make it work. The wiring's really ugly. There's a lot of stuff on the engine that I'd want to dress up. I'm hoping maybe in a couple years that we'll tackle this as like a major project, strip it totally down. Want to redo the whole chassis, put like double control arm front and rear suspension on it, you know, mount the engine nice, clean it all up, just kind of everything, like go a little above and beyond. Pay attention to every little detail. But for now, it's running again. Fuel filter, story of my life. I feel like so many problems I've had that have been fuel filter related. My wife has had to rescue me several times from fuel filters and fuel lines getting clogged. That's gonna be it for this week or this month, however long this has been in the making. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment down below if there's more of a certain thing that you're interested in. I get some comments asking about more details on the Volvo and what's been done with it. Any of the cars. If there's any questions about anything, let me know. I really would appreciate a like on the video, subscribing to the channel, turning on the notifications. All those things really help. You know, I have been at this, just started at the beginning of the year. I'm really hoping at a year's time that could maybe hit 1,000 subscribers. It's not huge, but it'd be helpful. It's kind of a fun little goal trying to reach. Whatever you do, I just appreciate you watching. So thanks again. We'll see you next time.